tonight class was held on a train because I was traveling for Passover to cook by my son's Chabad house in Springfield, Illinois. And we spoke about Passover, we spoke about liberation, and we discussed how we are going to get out of our personal Egypt.
Just the idea of Passover, of course, the idea of freedom, the idea of leaving our limitations. We search as we clean for the leaven. We also are searching for the leaven inside of ourselves. It's actually said about the first leader of the Chabad dynasty. There's the night before Passover where we check our homes for any trace of leaven the entire night. And he had one tiny room. How do you spend a whole night checking one tiny room? Because you're really checking yourself. You're cleansing yourself. This is really the reality of our lives. And that's why Bible is applicable for all of us, because all of us now during this time can do this inward search and look at ourselves. Where is our leaven? Where is our ego? That's what leaven symbolizes. Where's the ego inside of us and how do we get rid of it? Well, this is the time. So if there's any time we're going to be able to get rid of it, it's going to be now. So these days leading up to Passover are very auspicious. Then we've got 8 great days of Passover. Then we got about a week for the rest of the month, which is also a good time. We want to focus and we can make progress. Will we be completely ego-free? I don't know. But can we progress and really, really remove the ego inside of us? Yes, that's the amazing gift of Passover. So this is really the time to clean ourselves, to leave our Egypt. We could look at different ideas in the Haggadah. The Haggadah is a special guide to the Seder, which has all the steps. There are 15 ritualized steps of the Seder. I thought of some things that were relevant to us, and those are what I wanted to share. One is understanding the whole idea of redemption. We say in the telling the story, God kept his word to get us out of Egypt. God told Abraham that the Jews will be enslaved for 400 years. In his kindness, God started the clock ticking as soon as Abraham had a child, had his spiritual child and physical child, Isaac, Yitzhak. And that's when the clock started ticking. The reason why we had to wait for Isaac was because it says that your children, when Abraham was 70, that's when God told him this covenant that his children would be strangers, would be enslaved for 400 years, and then they would leave with great wealth. They would become God's people. This covenant was only supposed to start when the Jews arrived in Egypt. But God, in his kindness, started the clock ticking, not when the Jews arrived, but when Abraham had a child. Abraham was told this when he was 70. 30 years later, when he's 100, Isaac, Yitzhak is born. And God, in his kindness, at that time already started the countdown. So even though the Jews only entered Egypt 190 years later, they already accomplished 109 out of the 400 years because they were still considered strangers in Israel.
The Jews were supposed to be for 400 years. God started the clock by the birth of Isaac, so that saved us 190 years because it was 190 years from the birth of Isaac until the Jews entered Egypt. 210 years left. From the 210 years, the slavery only began approximately 95 years later, which means there's only 115 years approximately of slavery. And of the 115 years, the intensity of the slavery was for 86 very horrific years. So look at God's kindness from 400 to 110, 210 to 115, from 115 to really the intensity of 86. God's absolute kindness.
It was a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous compassion of God within this counting. And that really connects. The reason why I thought it was relevant to bring it in is because we see here that God wants to redeem us. And even when God makes a deal, so to speak, or says, all right, that's it, your children have to be enslaved in a strange land for 400 years, somehow God manages to make that 210 and then 115. And God's doing whatever he can to make it softer and softer and softer. And similarly now, we know based on the calculations, the redemption has to come quickly, soon, now. And we could say, well, maybe you could wait a few more years and still be within God's clock. But that's not how God works. God wants redemption more than we do. If it's the time, he's going to do whatever he can to make it happen already now. So that was one idea I thought was very relevant from this Seder Passover thoughts. A passage that I thought was very appropriate We're talking about the work, the harsh work. What was the harsh work? Well, I mean, the Jews were enslaved. That was pretty harsh. But the sage says the harsh work, the stress was raising our children. Because just as the Egyptians wanted to kill the boys, they wanted to Egyptianize the girls. An equal problem might even be considered a greater problem. And that's a problem we still need to fight. And definitely today, I think for all of us, we struggle with that problem. We might not call it Egyptianized, we might call it Americanized. But what do you do about this? Any ideas on how you keep your children from becoming like the world around them in the ways you don't want them to be like the world around them? And this is a very good time of year to take resolutions in this area. Anyone would like to share something they resolved in the past and saw success with?
For my family, we set a schedule. We're going to talk about, things that, for instance, for my eldest son, that, what's happening at school. So we kind of make that, consistent schedule for us to talk. Yeah. So we know what's happening outside of, school, or what's happening at school. Then he will share it and we will talk about it based on what we have learned, or at least what his father's input based on the Torah. It's really nice that we kind of have this, regular talk conversation, with him. So it's really helpful. Yeah. It's actually suggested by Rabbi
very wise idea.
Yeah. It's really helpful, actually. Yeah.
I always feel with all my children that I want to have regular times to talk to them, even when they have, so to speak, nothing to tell me, because then when they have something to tell me, the lines of communication are very strong. So having those regular times, even if what happened at school, nothing, fine, everything regular, no big deal. It's just good, that constant reopening and strengthening those lines. So when there actually is something to say, it's very easy. So that's a very, very smart, wise way to keep your child within your approach to life and not letting the outside world become his teacher. Okay. Now, the main really thought to remember is that we say, as we're telling over the story of the Exodus, we say in every generation, we have to leave Egypt. Every generation has to view themselves that they are leaving Egypt. And in Tanya, the author of the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, says it's every day. We always need to leave Egypt. And Egypt in Hebrew is the word Mitzrayim. And the etymology of Mitzrayim is Meitzar, which means limitation. So sometimes, of course, we physically have had to leave areas of persecution or areas that are not conducive for us to raise our family as we want them to be. But on a daily level, we have to really look at our limitations and get past them. And this is the whole idea of Passover. This festival of liberation is celebrating this historic event. It has to be constantly guarded. Each day, each environment has its own equivalent of Egypt, has a power to undermine our freedom. And the biggest threat to freedom is from within, believing certain achievements are beyond us. The complacent belief that you're not born to achieve such spiritual heights. These beliefs are very Egypt-like, very self-limiting. Passover is the ongoing process of the struggle constantly renewed within us to live up to our spiritual potential. And that's what we have to remember, this liberation every day. We need to personally leave Egypt every day. We need to personally escape our limits, our temptations, escape the obstructions that the physical places in the way of the spiritual manifestation of the liberation of the soul from the constraints of the physical environment. With God's help, we get out through a life of Torah and serving God. This removes a tremendous spiritual anguish that the soul otherwise feels. The soul has this constant conflict of serving God and of physical life. To have this freedom, which implies this serenity and harmony between these two elements, that's by leaving our Egypt. That's by leaving our limitation. And that is really a prelude to the freedom and peace the entire world will experience with the redemption now. Our sages said that in this month, this is a Jewish month of Nisan. Today was the 11th of Nisan, which means we've got less than 20 days left. The sages say in Nisan we were redeemed from Egypt, and Nisan we will be redeemed, which means this is the best month for redemption. Of course, we believe every day Mashiach redemption can come, redemption should come. Absolutely. There's no day I'm not going to tell you is the best day for redemption. Whatever day we're on, that's the best day for redemption. But this is the most auspicious month, which means tremendous redemption energy is out there. All of this means, so to speak, we want to be on our best behavior to make it happen, to really push ourselves spiritually as well as physically. God appreciates both. We want this year to be in Jerusalem. What I think is a really good practical thing to think about to make this real, I think the most practical thing to do this time of year not to have me talk and give you nice ideas. I think we got the basic point. But for each person to really select what Egypt she is planning on leaving. Because if we don't make it concrete, if we don't make it real, it'll just dissipate and it'll have been another Passover season and then move on. But if we really concretely try to change and leave one, if not multiple Egypts, we can make it happen. This is a very small, intimate group in this very small, intimate class on a train. So anybody would like to share what Egypt they would like to leave and they are going to leave this year, this Passover season?
Well, in my case, I think I love to be less technology oriented and political issues. I love
That would be a very big thing for anyone. How do you think you could leave it?
technology. I know I can just take breaks, no, at least from time to time and use it as the most necessary things. And political issues, yes, I've been working away already for a while. I used to be involved in political issues and not anymore. So, and focusing on the spiritual area, no more room for political parties and all this.
That's amazing. Both of the obsessive issues, and of course, for everyone today, the technology is a huge piece. I know for myself, I started this, I don't remember, a few weeks ago, and it was really great. Then it sort of like fell apart a bit, just when, I don't know, Passover, I don't remember what it was. My kids coming home. I don't know. A lot of different things happened, but I really want to get back to it. It felt so liberating. It truly felt like liberation. I tell them.
Well, in my case, I have, and so I can actually turn off everything for children. So I have no excuse to say that I need my phone. Turn it off most of the time, and I actually turn it on when I really have to make a call or etc. But I'm working on it.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. So what I did was I kept my phone off, everything off until after I finished praying and studying. And then I opened it, I checked everything, responded to what I had to. And then I said, okay, now it has to be off for the next hour and a half. An hour and a half, I can open, I can check, I can respond. We're coming into Joliet. And then again, I shut it for an hour and a half. And I just kept like every hour and a half. I checked because I knew things could come in that I would need to see, but then an hour and a half shut off. And it was an amazing experience of control, of me being the master, of it not controlling me. It was a really, really powerful experience. It literally felt like leaving Egypt. Literally.
Well, that's the part I like. I have a peaceful set of mind. You know, like I don't have to worry to respond to any message, text or calls, and also the if I turn it off, I'm not wondering who's calling. Even if I don't respond, you're still anxious that who called, what, etc. So I just turn it off.
Amazing. That's a great example. I'm glad you raised it because maybe other people could say, hey, me too. Anyone else? Any other thoughts on the type of freedom you're going to create for yourself this Passover season?
I plan on getting work on more of my physical and emotional health. And my husband and I will be doing stuff together. So I'll make some goals and I don't know, maybe make some kind of competition with them or something to help motivate and grow together.
That sounds great. That sounds really great. Getting your husband to do it sounds unbelievable. So Corey, how are you going to get your husband involved?
Well, he's already wanting to do that as well. So it was just Pesach is a good perfect time because we try and keep things simple as far as what we eat too, just to make it easier. Stick with more meat and vegetables and
keeping Passover simple. You're able to say, we don't have so much junk in our life. We're able to leave our Egypt because the junk we have also keeps us stuck. That's very true. That's very, very, very true. And maybe that's why Passover is a good time to leave, because, for the Jewish people, for sure, it is a very stripped down, simple time. The only spice I use is salt. The foods I use are what I can peel and chop myself. So it's a very back to basics situation. And that definitely, you're right. Removing the stuff makes it easier. You're absolutely right. That's a very, very wise point. Very smart. So you're going to work on physical health and emotional health. And both of those make a lot of sense. Natanya, any thoughts for you?
Well, I think to continually, should I say, I wanna I wanna free myself, truly free myself from the bondage of myself. Because sometimes I still tend to, I know in my core that I trust God, and it's all God, and God is, um yeah, God is infinite and stuff. But still, I tend to, forget that somehow. Sometimes if I I get sad or stuck with business and stuff like that. So I sometimes need to remind myself that it's really, I mean, I could always do the best of, thing that I could do in a situation, but it's still, within my control. So um it's still a process for me. Yeah. And I really hope that, after this, this holiday would help me to, free up that, bondage of myself, to truly free myself in that bondage, that it's not really, within my control, and trust it all the way.
Relate so much to what you're saying. I think I work on that like every single day. That Egypt of being stressed or being sad or feeling burdened, feeling you got more on your plate, way too much more than you can deal with. And it's a constant stop, breathe, and just know I'm in God's very, very good hands. And he's taking very good care of me. And I keep just reminding myself that God takes good care of me. And then I think of all the ways he's taken good care of me. The fact that I made the train tonight was a miracle. It was a very confusing train station. I couldn't believe I made it. And it just and focusing and seeing God's kindness and celebrating God's kindness. And if I'm in a space where I feel that pressure, that Egypt, I don't let myself out of it until I feel okay. And I just stop and think and stop and think and stop and think until I know so strongly that I'm in God's very, very, very good hands. And I'm thinking, really, what everyone said, I relate to so much. I totally relate to Ruth, not politics. That's not my politics. 100%. I have my strategy that I shared, but I got to really be on that game. Not to slip. It's so easy to slip. Like, just open the phone for one thing, lo and behold, all these other things are calling your name. And like, how could you ignore them when you already opened your phone? So therefore, not open your phone. Even when there's all these valid reasons to open your phone. I just want to send this message to someone. I have to remember in an hour and a half to send her a message. That's so silly. But once I open the phone, then I see everything else. So I totally want and am working on, and I hope to attain that freedom from technology that Ruth spoke about. I love what Corey said also, physical and emotional. I definitely have not been taking good care of myself lately, working way too hard. Passover, taxes, everything going on in life. And yes, I think that's a huge priority, because when we nurture ourselves and we can ourselves, we're the greatest model. Everyone around us that we want to impact, they also can go